Oh, come on, Gertz. She's just like chitty chatty. She just needs a little ear rub, and then that won't be enough, and she'll yell again, and she'll appear on the pod, and this is just the way it is always. Hello, and welcome to Expected Own Goals. I'm your host, Eric Morgan.
I'm Evan Davis. Big announcement.
Mm-hmm. The big announcement. Evan, go ahead.
We are coming up on our 1-year anniversary. We thought that in honor of another international tournament upon us this summer, that it is our 1-year anniversary, that we have built up a very nice group of listeners who we have met both virtually and in person and really adore and appreciate all their feedback. We felt this was the right time to take our bonus episodes that we've been making, and we are starting a Patreon. We are setting up a subscription tier for Expected Own Goals. We are going to begin offering this when the tournament begins. This is going to be a situation where all of our bonus episodes that we've been putting out Thursdays or Fridays will be moved behind the paywall. So for the low price of $6 a month, you will be getting 4 bonus episodes every single month. But that's not all. You will also be getting access to our brand new Discord, which we're going to be launching for the start of the tournament, to give you guys a place to hang out, chat with us during games, in between games. And we are going to be doing a couple of alternate stream live watch-alongs for US games that will be available only to our subscribers.
I'm excited. We have a lot of fun stuff that we want to plan for those of you who sign up for this Patreon. And if you sign up now,
if we decide that we want to create new subscription tiers at slightly higher prices for more content, well, if you are a founding subscribing member, you're going to get that stuff for free, and your price will not go up. And what are we calling our founding members?
Well, this podcast began because we loved Sam Coffey and felt she was not being respected. And so it's only appropriate that at $6, you would become a deep lying playmaker for us. You would become one of our deep lying playmakers, a position that both Evan and I think is crucial to the success of any team and contributes both to attack and defense. I can think of no level better titled than becoming a member of our deep lying playmaker network.
You contribute in all facets of the game. You are crucial members to the success and health of this little franchise of ours, and we would be honored if you would join us for this crazy ride that we've been on and will continue to be on. Come July 25th, you can become a founding Deep Lying Playmaker subscriber to Expected Own Goals.
It's been really rewarding. We have listeners on all continents, in many countries on each of those continents. We thank you so much. This is a really global game. We love the idea of a truly global community participating in the appreciation for data and analytics-based look at women's soccer. So thank you to everyone who's listened, and we want to keep offering you lots of crazy good coverage.
So on July 25th, we will start pumping out all the information for you to go subscribe and become a Deep Lying Playmaker member of Expected Own Goals.
Yay! And we have another USA-Mexico game, but this one was less exciting than the last time these two teams met. Evan, do you want to remind us of what happened the last time these two teams met?
Mexico whipped their ass 2-0.
Yeah, classic 2-0. And this time, on what would be described as a sweltering day, the United States only 1-0 Mexico.
Just about. Yeah, listen. What did we learn from this game? I don't think a whole hell of a lot.
No, I don't think so either.
The big news that influenced this game was Catarina Macario withdrawing from the roster due to minor knee irritation, which is a byproduct of her 2-year ACL recovery. In my opinion, Macario was the best player to play at attacking midfield, and I think her performances at Chelsea in the last couple of months of the season also bore that out. I think her performances in a U.S. shirt bore that out even more so. It's just, this is what happens when you have a 2-year ACL recovery. Sometimes you backslide, and so she had to pull out. Rose Lavelle appears to be the starting number 10 in her stead. But yeah, this seems like it's probably going to be the starting 11 when the tournament starts in a week and a half. But this does clarify the depth chart at that position. because attacking midfield was lousy with international caliber talent on this roster.
May I just say, next up, another noted Iron Man, Rose Lavelle, in her stead.
Yeah. Honestly, that would be the one I worry about more, just because so many of her injuries are chronic, nagging, and persistent.
And Rose Lavelle has not put together a huge number of healthy 90s over the past 18 months herself.
What did you think of her? Because she did start against Mexico. What did you think of her?
I thought that down the right flank with Trinity Rodman and Rose Lavelle and their natural interchange, and then with the supplemental Sophia Smith running, the U.S. looked... They were just sort of slicing Mexico apart and creating good chances without giving up anything on the defensive end to create those good chances.
Emily Fox was getting forward in ways that she hasn't always been asked to do since Twyla Kilgore became the interim head coach. And the bunch ball problems with Ashley Sanchez and Savannah DeMello last year at the World Cup weren't really present. There was much better understanding of space. And Fox had a couple of crisp-looking key passes, especially in the very, very beginning of the game, those two chances that Sophia Smith and Rose Lavelle had within like 30 seconds of each other. That was positive. I saw some negative reaction from some fans, and Julie Foudy didn't seem all that thrilled with the way the first half went. But, you know, guys, the heat index was 97 degrees in Harrison at kickoff.
Yeah, it won't be that in Paris or really anywhere in France, not for the games that they're playing. And moreover, I think that this is a classic example of a game where control was the name of the game. Mm-hmm. So many Emma Hayes performances as manager of Chelsea, and this is the thing that we've all been joking about before she sort of arrived at the US. They aren't going to always be pretty.
No.
And I think that there's this narrative out there that Emma Hayes plays like elevated, beautiful soccer.
No, she plays winning soccer, but that's not always the same thing.
Yeah, that's not the case. She has, much like she had at Chelsea, the gift of some extraordinary individually talented players with some great familiarity with each other who will be responsible for the lion's share of what is created offensively, and then defensive solidity behind it is the name of the game. So Mexico, unlike in the Gold Cup, just sort of didn't ever get a toehold into this game. And the choke points that they attempted to sort of beat the U.S. at was this sort of midfield press that was meant to put Coffey and Haran under pressure. And frankly, it didn't work very well.
It looked okay at times. There were moments where it seemed, because you want to talk about control, there were times when the U.S. wanted to build in possession, and it looked a little grubby. It looked like they did not know quite how to beat Mexico's press. But the thing is, and it is ironic given that Hayes seems to not want the team to do this, because in her post-game presser she said, I thought our decision-making was a little bit too quick in the first half. It was a lot of first idea, best idea play. But ironically, a lot of the U.S.'s best chances came in transition, because this is sort of like how their attack, given the personnel involved, can be so deadly. And Hayes doesn't want them doing that for 90 minutes. And I do understand the logic to a certain extent. You don't want them burning out, because playing Germany and Brazil and potentially Japan in the Olympics is going to be a very tall order, and you're not going to be able to hit teams in transition and not have to worry about them getting you when you run out of gas in the final 20 minutes. I get all of that. But when it was Haran, or if it was Naomi Girma, who had a lot of really nice looking long balls over the top, and it was Rodman and Swanson and Smith all finding ways to combine with each other in a high tempo, that's when they looked most dangerous, in my opinion. Even in the first half, when things were not maybe their cleanest.
Girma's long passing in the first half, in addition to some of the really key balls that Emily Fox played, allowed space to sort of exist in the middle of the field because the threat of the over-the-top ball existed. Sort of, it's like one thing unlocks the other. We talk about this a lot. And why you need to be unpredictable and why an offense needs to be multifaceted. When the U.S. was sort of struggling in those first 20, 25 minutes, dealing with some aggressive midfield pressure from Mexico, Girma's ball over the top to Smith ended that exclusive focus that you saw Mexico playing, because they realized, oh, crap, this team that I know wants to play a certain way is also capable of playing this other completely dangerous way. Yeah. And we can't be so singularly focused on shutting them down in this one aspect of the game because everything else is open. And frankly, that led to a knock-on series of attacks where the U.S. was dangerous, whether it was quick combination play in transition or whether it was long ball over the top or whether it was control and build. The U.S., you look at that control map for the first half, it is just U.S., U.S., U.S. the whole way.
Yeah, until maybe the final 10 or 15 minutes. And to me, that's just the heat and humidity catching up with both sides.
Yeah, totally.
And then in the second half, they just put the pedal to the metal. And barring one moment where Jackie Ovalle took a terrible shot from 25 yards, but on a very good counterattack that caught the U.S. backline at too high upfield, other than that, they really didn't offer very much.
Give me a grade for this match. For you?
I don't know, B+, A-. But for me, it's all influenced by the fact that, especially in that first half, they probably didn't want to go hell for leather, A, because of the weather, and B, because you don't want anybody to get hurt 12 days before the tournament. It's very easy to just ascribe a lot of weight to games like this. And regardless, the only XG data that we can find for this friendly, because sadly FBref and Scout are not tracking these friendlies, is a website called footystats.org, which is primarily a betting site. Their XG methodology is a little bit opaque, so maybe take these numbers with a grain of salt. But according to them, the U.S. won the XG battle by more than an XG. It was 1.7 to 0.6. Did Mexico really generate 0.6 XG? Probably not. That seems very unlikely.
Frankly, that almost feels off by like a decimal place.
Sure. Maybe, but also that should just speak to how the U.S. isn't giving up anything. And 1.7 XG from the U.S. feels kind of plausible. I mean, they had 9 shots inside the box. I mean, that Trinity Rodman shot off a corner kick in the 50th minute is dead red and just flashes wide of the post. Depending on how you would calculate XG for Smith's chance in the 14th, the keeper was out of her area, and so even though it was from long range and from a very acute angle, that's probably a pretty good chance too. Like, they looked quite dangerous when they were able to get in the box and put a shot up.
And frankly, that 22nd minute chance that Sophia Smith has from 10 yards out, that has some XG variance there too. That ball is just a hair behind from Rodman, or Smith is there a hair early, depending on how you want to see that.
Yeah.
But it's a great chance that sometimes just gets saved.
The transition combination work up that right flank is like what you want to see this team do in order to break down low blocks.
One of the comments I know that we both bristled at that Julie Foudy made in the first half in the commentary is just about finishing efficiency. Long-term listeners of this podcast will know that we have dubious belief in the reality of finishing. That said, we don't disbelieve the reality of chance creation. And Sophia Smith was just time and time and time and time again finding herself in dangerous positions, putting herself in the right places to score, and ultimately ends up scoring on not one of the best chances she has during her game, but she created what?
On the eye test alone, she put up 6 good-looking chances, 5 of which were inside the box.
And many of them after intelligent little cutbacks or smart runs or just kind of all the striker stuff you want to see.
Completely.
And she put away one of the harder chances that she got, which felt like, again, why we like XG. It felt like that shot's result was the cumulative effort of everything that had come before it, or represented the cumulative effort of everything that had come before it. Yeah. Was it the best chance? No, it wasn't, but she put it home.
Emma Hayes, in the post-match presser, said that the team needs to put more shots on frame, which also echoed what Foudy said about the first half. But, I decided to take a look at this, and it's not apples to apples necessarily, but I looked at the past season at the club level of good teams playing each other. It's who you're thinking of in your mind coming out of Europe. And then for the NWSL, I put in everybody except for Utah and Houston, since the level of competition is so much higher in the NWSL. So I just looked at games where those teams played each other in their leagues, and for European teams folded in the Champions League as well. On average, when good teams at club level over the last year play each other, the team puts up about 4.5 to 5 shots on target, and 36% of their total shots end up on target. Yesterday, the U.S. put 6 shots on target, and about 35% of all of their shots were on target. They played like a good team playing a good team. 0.06 goals per shot, 1 goal from 17 shots. Yeah, that's not efficient, but you can't actually control that as much as I think people think you can. Was the attack playing like Barcelona versus Sporting Huelva? No. But also, Mexico is clearly quite intent on turning this into a grubby rivalry where big, good chances are not going to be available in bushelsfuls. And the U.S. still outplayed them convincingly. In 97-degree heat index weather.
That's the big thing for me, which is to say this is one of those games where the U.S. flat out outplayed their opponent. The score didn't look great, but I think if this game ends 3-0 on exactly the same chances, the narrative is different.
Completely, yeah.
The chances were there for this to end 3-0, and when you put up 1.7 non-penalty XG, you're going to have some 3-0s and you're going to have some 1-0s. But the performance beating your opponent by over an XG is a sustainable one, and one that you can feel pretty good about going into a major tournament. And frankly, this is 3 games in the Emma Hayes era, 3 shutouts, 3 pretty one-sided victories. No massive competition just yet, but no scrubs either. Mexico in particular, I continue to be impressed by on a sort of player-by-player basis.
I mean, just got Jackie Ovalle, man. Like, unbelievable.
You've watched probably a little more Jackie Ovalle than I have, but the Jackie Ovalle I've watched, it's one of those that I'd be sending a scout to watch a fair amount more of her.
Well, the problem is, Adriana Terrazas told us this, is that Ovalle's had offers from Champions League teams, and she turned them down because she wanted to stay home. I respect that for her as a person, but man, with regard to the development of her as a player and also her potential earning power, simply through sheer exposure, God, she could tear the Champions League up if she wanted to.
Yeah, I'm kind of like, hey, Houston, Monterrey is not that far away.
San Diego, LA, Houston, yeah, all 3 of them.
Who could really, well, I guess all 3 of those teams actually could really use a Jackie Ovalle. But hey, guys, there's a Jackie Ovalle out there who you might just want to like follow up with in case there's some potential interest. No, she again was a real bright light in this game for me. Let's talk about stuff that you saw that you felt really did work and you felt really didn't work. What really did work for you? If you were to name like 3 things.
I mean, I feel like we've kind of hit on what we thought, quote unquote, didn't work, which, I think deserves quotation marks. Naomi Girma looked great on both sides of the ball. That one dangerous transition that Mexico had in the 51st, Ovalle is forced to take a 25-yard shot because Girma and the rest of the back line, even though they get caught out, close down the attack almost immediately. And Girma just swallows Camberos up. So when she passes out to Ovalle doesn't have room to move in closer. Thought Coffey had a good game. Nothing super flashy from her.
She's going to have to watch yellow card accumulation in the Olympics. I mean, a really smart yellow that she took, but one of those that you kind of get one in the group stage of those. You can't use it every game. I was just like, oh, you know what? Flag that for her.
I think Swanson had a really, really nice game.
Really? I felt she was out of sorts for part of the first half and then sort of found her way, but she was forced back a lot.
I think that's true. That's a byproduct of that midfield press from Mexico identifying like who is the primary progression danger once you move into the attacking half. So they keyed in on her. They also just didn't have the stamina or the legs to keep it up. She had a great shot from a Sophia Smith through ball at the beginning of the second half. She's the one who feeds Smith for the goal in the 64th. She is sort of the linchpin if you think about Swanson, Smith, and Rodman, if not as a flat front 3, which they never really play as a flat front 3. If you think of them as a triangle, it's Swanson who is sort of the base of that triangle and unlocking the runs.
Yeah, and Swanson on the left is naturally going to do a lot more interchanging with Smith, and Rodman is going to stay a lot truer to her right side. Asymmetry there, and I just felt like there was sometimes maybe 5, maybe 10 yards apart that Swanson and Smith found themselves that sort of denied us some interplay during some phases of play. I am really picking at a nit here. I'm not upset with any of this, and nor do I have any sort of skepticism about the long-term viability of what just popped into my head as a possible name for this line, SSR. I love it. SSR, I love it because it combats my depression, this front line.
combinations through the middle. This kind of goes back to the Lavelle thing, where Lavelle, I think, was at her best when she was playing hero ball, but that isn't necessarily the thing that you ultimately want in the center of the park, linking both lines. Like, she just had this massive superhero dribble in the first half to create a chance, which, like, looked cool, and she, again, as you say, looked threatening on the right, interchanging and combining with Rodman and Fox. I'd just like to see more central creation, which I think Jaden Shaw will just give you more of.
Yeah. Do we want to talk about the fact that Corbin Albert was booed yet again?
If the team is upset about it, or if Corbin Albert is upset about it, like, I do not know what to tell you. You have still refrained from taking real accountability for your actions, so this is just going to keep happening. And it is well within the rights of every person in that stadium to boo your ass. And you're just going to have to put up with it unless you want to be a mature adult about this. Sadly, it just seems like the team is continuing to close ranks and set up a fortress and create this us against the world attitude, specifically with regard to Corbin Albert. Ridiculous.
Audible boos heard despite the fact that she was subbed on right after a goal and in a bank of 3. I think Corbin Albert, if she wants this to stop happening, needs to come out and make public comment at this point.
Yeah.
I continue to be disappointed with the U.S. handling of this. And frankly, I continue to be disappointed at Emma Hayes' sort of thumbing her nose at fans over this stuff.
I've been thinking about her comment at the roster announcement, how difficult this has all been for Corbin and how much that centers Albert's feelings and the feelings of those who have been hurt. It reminded me of when I used to work for MLB Network. I was on a show in a production meeting a couple of days after Josh Hader had gotten a standing ovation at what was then called Miller Park. And the reason he had gotten a standing ovation was hot on the heels of a bunch of homophobic and racist social media activity being revealed, much like what happened to Albert. And he got a standing ovation from his home fans. We were in the production meeting, and we were trying to figure out if we were going to talk about it at all. The prevailing attitude from most of the people in that room was, well, they're not expressing homophobia by doing that. They're just standing up for their guy. I do not know how you can rationalize that as a positive thing in this regard. And then somebody else in the room said, oh, God, this must have been so hard on Josh Hader. I hope he's okay. I don't want him to hurt himself. I didn't want Josh Hader to hurt himself either, but the idea that the most important thing was to consider his feelings after all of this was so deeply frustrating. I was even more frustrated with myself because I didn't immediately say in the meeting, hey guys, I'm queer. These comments indicate to me that I don't belong in this community. I don't have value and I don't have worth. Why isn't that just as important, if not more important, than Josh Hader's feelings being hurt because people were upset he was revealed as a homophobe? Similarly here, why should it be incumbent upon me to embrace a person who has expressed homophobia and transphobia and has not actually publicly held themselves to account for it? That's not my job.
U.S. fans react to this however you choose, but those of you who boo Corbin Albert, you are well within your right to voice displeasure at a team that means so much and stands for so much.
To get back to the original question, yeah, I thought Coffey looked pretty solid. Haran's long ball to Smith in the 52nd, very nice little chance. Again, there's going to be opportunity with this group to go over shapes rather than through or around shapes, and so you'll need somebody with good long ball service. Thought that was a very nice little moment. Yeah, in general, I thought it was all fine. I mean, maybe Neiswanger didn't have the best game I've ever seen her have.
No, she didn't, but also defensively serviceable, still figuring her way out in the Emma Hayes world of it all. But it's not like Jenna Neiswanger isn't still a very good left back.
If the Sands are fluid at any positional group in this roster right now, it's still fullback, and we've talked about it before. Kruger, Fox, and Neiswanger all offer you different things. They will have strengths that will cater to different opponents. Hopefully, Hayes recognizes that and is willing to cycle them in and out, because I don't think any of them is in ink for me, but all should get a start at some point.
Let's wrap this up and talk maybe own goals, because I want to own an own goal.
You want to own an own goal?
Well, I mean, just an oversight more than an own goal.
Okay.
I want to acknowledge that while I was being a little pig-headed in selecting my five-a-side team and decided I needed an attacker, I wasn't clever enough, and I think it was pointed out by Trev in DC, listener and follower of this show, that we had talked about Tara McKeown, and I still did have a Washington Spirit spot to snag. And McKeown is a converted striker. And that would have been a very, very clever selection for my five-a-side team. And McKeown has been really good in the middle of a very good Spirit defense. And we talked about it in preseason, has sort of filled the Sam Staub-sized void as best as one could without announcing themselves as a full Sam Staub.
Yeah.
I think McKeown would have been a great selection and is a better selection than taking Sentner with my fifth pick. So own goal to myself for trying to make an argument that I didn't need to make because Tara McKeown existed.
Yeah, I love that. I love that for you.
Yeah.
We're going to be back on Thursday to discuss the second and final game for the U.S. women's national team before the Olympic tournament starts against Costa Rica. See if anything really gets shaken up with regard to lineup, tactics, style, ideas. Who knows? But until then, be sure to rate, review, follow, rate us 5 stars if you're going to rate us at all. Please tell all your friends about us who love women's soccer and your friends who don't love women's soccer, frankly. We're a big tent. If you are so inclined, please follow us on all social media channels at XOwnGoals. That's the letter X Own Goals. And if you believe we've made an own goal, email us at expectedowngoals@gmail.com. That's the letter expectedowngoals@gmail.com. Until Thursday, folks.